Hello, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to Harping on Rugby, where with the help of some fellow fans, I get the chance to harp on what's going on with Leinster, Ireland, and the wider rugby world. First up, joining me this week is someone making Harping Pod appearance number 65. Welcome back to Mr. Connor Cronin.
Thanks for having me. I'm getting ever closer to that same number as Tom, so you'll have to be careful.
Indeed. And completing our panel is another Leinster and Ireland rugby nut earning cap number 9. Well, hello to Mr. David Cordial.
Thanks, Jeff. Good to be here.
Good to see you both. Going back to our feature match from Saturday, afterwards, Leo Cullen had this to say, quote, "We probably rode our luck during the course of the game and it was scrappy, but it was pleasing for some of the young guys like Alan Spicer coming off the bench to experience a win like this," end quote. And from the fans' point of view, at the full-time whistle, Bert McLaughlin said this on our Facebook page, quote, "Not really a great game for a neutral, but hey, I'm not a neutral, so it was, of course, a great win. Max was superb," end quote. Do you disagree, or would you have said the same thing a different way? Well, we always leave a post open on the Facebook page after Leinster and Ireland matches. Why don't you join in the conversation next time? And so now this brings us to our final thoughts, starting with Connor.
I think some of what you've said there in the quotes from Leo Cullen and from Facebook really sum it up. The resolve to come out this week and say, last week didn't go to plan, last week didn't go, we were so close. You know, we're one questionable call from winning that game. And then to come out and say, well, do you know what? We can do it this week instead. And we can do it this week where some of those players who played last week have gone already, have left South Africa and are back in Dublin. So it's our job to step up and look at the age profile of those players. Look how many of them had, I mean, geez, you combine the caps of every other player who started, and you probably don't get to Cian Healy's total. But take Cian Healy's total out of it, and you've got players who are mostly like less than 10 caps, and a handful of sort of 20 to 40 caps, and then a couple of experienced heads. Our second row, I don't think they've started a game together. I don't even think they've finished a game together in this competition this year. Fintan Gunn on his first start, Spicer on his first match. Spicer, who, by the way, it's worth throwing in, is taller than R.G. Snyman and heavier than R.G. Snyman. So that's an interesting bit of bulk learning from someone like R.G. Snyman. But, Snyman's gone home, Slimani's gone home, Boyle's gone home. So it's left on these younger players, and look what it meant to them. Look what it meant. If you've watched the footage of the full-time whistle and the lads on the sideline looking, going, is it held up? Is it held up? Have we got it? Yeah, and diving on and screaming at each other and shouting at each other and leaping into each other's arms and diving into 2-foot deep swimming pools and all these other things they were doing, because it meant so much for them to say, do you know what, lads? It doesn't matter who is or isn't here. This is what we play for. This is how we play. This is the way the team works. So let's get out and get a win. And, bits of it were messy. Listening back to, I'd say, both of us, there will be a number of people who listen to this pod going, Jesus, did Andrew Osborne do much right? He did. He did loads right. He's just unfortunate to be the one who was responsible for a bunch of knock-ons as well. He'll go out and he'll work on that. He'll step into a field and say, right, launch them in the air for me, and he'll be the one catching them to make sure that next time he does better. Because that seems to be the mentality of this team. How do we do better than we did last week? And they definitely did better. The impact of that win, the fact that young guys like that are going to go out and say, I'm part of that. I'm part of the reason we won that game. I'm part of why we have an extra 4 points. I'm part of why we only need to win a few more games as a team to be guaranteed top spot. And what that'll do psychologically for those players is immeasurable. I think it is worth its absolute weight in gold, what it will do for them psychologically and bring on the next few games.
Yeah, absolutely. Myself and Kigo were saying on the preview how, we were saying how the expectations were low, but you look at all these players coming into the Leinster team. I mean, they didn't get there for nothing. They've shown they have the talent. They've shown they've been willing. They don't just hand them the jersey for the sake of it. They've earned their spot in the team. And if they play to that potential in those conditions, we're definitely going to put ourselves in a chance. And we did see it. You saw Finton Gunn. You saw our second rows, Mangan and Deeney. We saw them all putting in these performances, and it bodes well for the future. And right to the final whistle, they showed they could do it. What did you think, David?
I thought it was a really encouraging performance, particularly after last week. I was worried coming out of the last week. I almost felt like going into that match, I didn't really expect much, even with Simon being there and Barrett being there, Slimani being there. Like it was definitely a stronger team than we'd sent down before. But I think if we'd gotten pumped, or if we'd had a really bad day at the office, it almost would have been easier to stomach. The fact that we came so close, and then to just fall at that last end, it got me concerned, because it's something Leinster have struggled with. It usually comes out in finals, where you know Leinster are not used to being behind at the end of a game. They're not used to things coming down to this narrow margin. There was a match a few years ago, I think it was against Sale Sharks in the RDS, where Leinster had such a monumental lead that we were able to let in 14 points in the last 5 minutes, and the scoreline still looked like we trashed them. So I think when you're used to that kind of dominance, you having your back against the wall, you don't want the first time that ever happens to be in a final, because you're not used to dealing with it. And the way we didn't handle the scrum when we were clearly getting dominated was a source of concern. To then come back a week later, be shorn of Barrett and Snyman and Slimani, and to basically correct all those mistakes, with the scrum, it was notable how quick Deegan was getting off the back of them. Gunn was the scrum half on the field last week when the penalty went against us for the Bulls' final kick. But the combo of the speed he was getting it in and getting it to the back, and then just the speed that Deegan was getting it out of there. They clearly saw what mistakes happened last week, and they said it's not going to happen to us again. To not let the heads go down. I thought, the closest we came last week, okay, we're going to come out this week, and we're just not going to be able to do it again. But they did it again, and they found themselves in the exact same position, except this time they won. So I thought the combo, having their backs against the wall in 2 games on the road, in a row on the road, in hostile conditions, Pretoria at however high above sea level it is, Durban being 28 degrees and humid, like you could see Sia Khaleesi buckets of sweat, and he's from South Africa, and he was absolutely pouring with it after the game. So for to be able to handle themselves in those kind of conditions, and to take the loss the first week and then turn it into a victory the next week, I think the combination will almost be worth more to the team overall than if they'd won both games. So I thought as an overall, from the point of view of the league, I thought it's come out of South Africa with 5 points. That is phenomenal stuff. That's going to stand to us, particularly in the end game. But I think it's the mental victory of both getting a victory under very tough circumstances, but having the opportunity to immediately respond to the mistakes you made the week before, to be able to rectify them, and then to turn a very narrow loss into a very narrow victory. I thought it was it was fairy tale stuff. Now, I would say if we could avoid coming down to the last 5 minutes and not being sure if we're going to win in the future, I wouldn't mind that, and I think my heart rate wouldn't mind it either. But I think as tours go, this will go down as a pretty good one.
Well, that's brilliant. Many thanks, lads. Thanks again to Connor and David for joining me. Hope to have you back on again soon. Thanks, lads.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks for having me.